In this video, we're talking our 2022 predictions for the Walt Disney Company, including parks, corporate, and TV streaming studio side. We're going to discuss it up next. Hey everybody, Happy New Year and welcome to 2022. In this video, we are going to discuss our predictions for the Walt Disney Company. I brought my great panel with me today, George, Mr. Disney Family Man 23, Dre, Vash, Sky, host of Freshly Squeezed. We're going to break this down into three segments, studio, parks, and corporate. And each of us are going to provide you guys our prediction for each segment, and we're going to discuss it. So it's going to be a very, very fascinating conversation. But before we dive into that, let's introduce my fantastic panel, Mr. Disney Family Man 23, host of Citrus Corner. How you doing today, George?
I'm doing good. Glad to be on here, and I'm ready to talk some 22 predictions.
Let's do it. Let's do it. And before we get started, where can they find you on social media, sir?
Absolutely. You can find me on my own YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23, in which I do have to say I apologize. No new content has come out since the holidays and everything, but I guarantee you new content will be coming out, starting with my review on the Magic Candle Company review of some of the Christmas gifts that I have received.
Cool.
So definitely
I'm very interested.
Check out for that. And you could also find me on Instagram under Disney Family Man 23, Twitter at Disney George, and of course on Orange Grove 55's channel with Citrus Corner.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. And down below, Dre, Vash, Sky, host of Freshly Squeezed. Dre, welcome to the show, sir.
Man, I'm so glad to be back. You know, we've been off doing other stuff and doing all kinds of other things, and to get the band back together again to talk about this kind of stuff, man, it really feels like I'm at home. So really, really glad to be here.
Yes, and where can they find you on social media, sir?
Best place to interact with me is at Vash Sky. That's right there on Twitter. Getting a lot of great comments, a lot of great feedback, so that's really, really been rewarding. But best place to see me is on your channel at Freshly Squeezed. Your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove on Orange Grove 55. There you go.
Yes,
Sorry, screwed it up there, but there you go.
Well, thank you both for joining me today, and thank you all for watching and tuning in today. What we're going to talk about today, like I mentioned in the header, we're going to talk about our 2022 predictions. Now, there's three segments: corporate, parks, and studio. Right now, we're gonna start off with the parks, okay? Because everyone loves the parks, and everyone's super interested in that aspect of the company. So let's start off with the parks. I'm going to start off with Mr. Family Man. What is your 2022 park prediction?
Well, for me, I would have to say, I think this kind of leans into the category for parks. I truly feel, and I had a conversation with this with Mr. Vash Sky on this, that with Disneyland Forward, that they had announced that in a certain time frame, I believe it was 18 months when they could actually start that process. Well, with that 18 month, that lands in the month of September of 2022, which is when, lo and behold, the D23 Expo is. So for the parks, my prediction is we may not get a whole lot of information, but I feel that that's going to be the front runner of when Disneyland Forward is going to start coming up from the gravel, so to speak, and they're going to start giving some information on projects years to come that's going to lead to this big, massive expansion for the Disneyland Resort.
Interesting. Dre, what are your thoughts on this kind of like this Disneyland Forward thing kind of falling kind of perfectly with that D23 Expo? Do you echo George's sentiment that maybe we're going to start seeing some details because of where it falls on that timeline?
I think I don't think we'll get many details, but I do think as long as the dates line up, that we do get some kind of, acknowledgement that, hey, look, we did get the approval for Disneyland Forward for the Anaheim Disneyland Resort, and we can, investment will be coming in the next, in the years ahead, so to speak. So that would be cool to kind of get a little bit of, like I said, acknowledgement from some of the higher ups regarding Disneyland Forward at like a D23 Expo. I think that would be really, really cool. So that's a pretty good prediction. I like that.
It is. And look, the Pandy changed everything. But pre-Pandy, the city of Anaheim was constantly fighting with Disney. And this isn't just like a recent thing. We saw it with Westcott in the late 90s, with the city and the residents and all this stuff, all this drama. We saw it recently, like 2 or 3 years ago, when Disney wanted to build a 4th hotel at the resort and the Gateway, bridge project. Again, a lot of pushback from the city and local businesses. But since the Pandy, when Disneyland Resort was shut down, everything dried up. The local economy in Anaheim was devastated by that. And I really think that changed the game for Disney and its relationship with Anaheim. I would be extremely surprised, and I don't want to jinx anything. I'm going to knock on some wood right now, but I would be extremely surprised if Disneyland Forward doesn't get approved. I think it's all but inevitable.
Yeah,
and I think that it will get approved. Now, will they get everything they want? No, they won't. That's what a negotiation is. I'm sure they're going to have to concede some things and what have you. It's a push and pull with these negotiations, but the overall project, the overall zoning and the bulk, the meat of the matter, I think will get approved. I agree with both of you fellas that this thing is moving forward.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a gripe for me when I see people, on social media, and they're saying, well, this is something that's not going to be completed for another 50, 60 years. That's the whole point.
Right.
You don't want it to be completed. A lot of people are seeing this as Disneyland Forward. Okay, this is just one little project. It should be completed in 5 to 10, 15 years. No, Disney wants to keep on the momentum with Disneyland as they are doing with Walt Disney World. They don't want it to end. They want it to go 50, 60 plus years into the future, that they can use as much land as they possibly can to dream up whatever they have, going on in WDI.
Well, and this is the thing too, and a lot of fans don't realize this, but Disneyland Resort only has so much space, and really, Walt Disney World is an anomaly in a lot of ways. Most resorts have only so much space, whether it be Tokyo Disneyland, whether that be Paris or Shanghai or whatever resort it is. Most resorts have a limited amount of space. So it's either like they have to destroy things to add new things, or they do things like Disneyland Forward, where they can expand the parameter in which they can expand the theme parks, and we can keep our beloved attractions that we love, like Tiki Room and things like that, and add more to it. Like, so we need, like George was saying, this long-term vision to continue to add to the resort. This isn't a one and done thing. Disneyland Forward is not going to get approved and then in 5 years, the whole thing is done. This is a long-term vision, 20, 30 years going forward. They just want to plant the seeds, so for many, many decades to come, they can expand. So that's the goal here. It's a long-term thing. This is gonna definitely go well beyond Bob Chapek. I mean, this is going to be a multiple CEO endeavor.
And that's what you want. I mean, you want a path forward. You want, you want momentum in this direction. You want the ability to expand these parks out and the ability to expand Disneyland Resort out. I mean, I can kind of see like, oh, well, it's going to be 30 years or more or whatever. But it's like, guys, I mean, the ability for them to expand in these locations. I mean, we previously had not even conceived it before. So the ability to kind of unlock those areas, I mean, I think it's fantastic. I think it shows the potential of where Disneyland could go in the next 30 years, and I'd like for that to be available. I'd like for that to be an option. So it's all good as far as I'm concerned. I think this is really good, and I do think it will be approved. I don't think the full plans, like you said, OG, will be approved. I don't think the city is going to capitulate on the idea of something else other than a theme park going in at Toy Story. At the Toy Story lot or the Strawberry Fields or whatever. But I do see them definitely approving something for the parking lot of the Pixar Pier or the Symbol lot or whatever.
Yeah. Now, one thing that's interesting is like, I think we talked a lot in our last video about kind of like Dre, I think it was you who actually mentioned how Disney's not spending the money on future projects like their competitors.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to speak up for Walt Disney World because I'm not as familiar with Walt Disney World, but I do think part of that, I think I mentioned in the video actually the other day too, is this Disneyland Forward project. I think there's a lot of uncertainty with this, and they want to make sure that's locked in. The Paradise Pier Hotel, the fact that they never changed it to a Pixar Pier Hotel. Look, Disney's obsessed with IP.
Yeah.
They jump on the chance to add and incorporate IP to anything. The fact that they haven't done that with that hotel says a lot. They're waiting. They're waiting for that decision, and a lot of things right now in Anaheim are on hold. I think once, and this kind of plays into my prediction, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But once it gets approved, I think we're going to see a lot more movement on future projects and what have you. So it's an exciting time. It really is.
And one last thing I just have to say before we move on to one of your predictions. I can't stress this enough to everyone that when Disney gave their ideas of what could potentially go in for Disneyland Forward when they show Zootopia, Toy Story Land, Tron, Ratatouille, etc., just know this may not be actually what is Disneyland Forward. It's Disney giving the overall suggestion of what could possibly be done when given, granted from the city of Anaheim, all that space to use.
That's a pretty apt. Yeah, I think that's good advice right there. That's a pretty apt distinction, right? These are not confirmed to be developed for the Disneyland area. This is just showing that, hey, look, this is what could be done. I think it's appropriate. Like you said, OG, I think it is a very fluid situation. And yes, if you're going to invest capital into some of these projects or development, or even as far as that's concerned, yes, I do agree that you'd probably want to have at least some idea of what the status is for Disneyland Forward, given the level of investment that you need to harness for something like that. So. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, I think we're all on the same page here with Disneyland Forward. It will probably move forward. It'll probably get approved. It's going to dictate a lot as to what the future holds for the resort. So it's a very, very exciting time, and great prediction, George. That was fantastic. Mr. Freshly Squeezed, you're up to bat, sir. What is your prediction for the parks in 2022?
I think. It's mine's a little bit more analytically driven. Okay. So I'll try to, I'll try to broaden it out. I think you're going to see peaks in attendance surrounding the openings of Cosmic Rewind in Walt Disney World. I think Galactic Star Cruiser, I think might not be as successful as they hoped. I'm hoping to be wrong about that, by the way. I do want the company to do well, but right now, I think even the company itself is a little bit on edge with that. So we'll see how that goes. I think Tron has a pretty good chance of debuting at the end, by the end of the year. Cool. Right? I think it's a pretty good chance. I don't know. We'll see. I could always, delay that. Hopefully they don't. And then for Disneyland Resort, I think we'll see spikes in attendance surrounding the return of shows, of entertainment. Well, the Color, Fantasmic, the Electrical Parade we know is coming back, and at some point, Disneyland Forever is coming back, which is really, really cool. That's awesome. Unfortunately, we got to live through one more season of Mickey's Mixed Magic, which
that's some mixed reviews.
Yeah, exactly, right. I could live without.
Yeah.
But really, I think Disney's going to continue to have problems when it comes to the hotel and cruise line space. That's one to watch out for, especially that cruise line, because man, oh man, the industry's really hurting right now.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and that's an interesting point, Dre, because Disney's hotel business and cruise business, there's a lot going on right now that's going to really affect it. Like you said, with the cruise lines and the Pandy and the Decepticon variant or whatever they call it now.
Oh man, that's good.
All that stuff.
I'm glad you said that first before me, because when they first announced that, I thought that sounds like something right off of Transformers.
Decepticon.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a factor with the cruises, and this whole, like you mentioned, the Star Cruiser. I agree with you, Dre. I think that thing is really, oh man, in a world of hurt right now. A lot of people are canceling the reservations. They gotta do something for that. I mean, that I think the numbers on that's going to be abysmal. So between the Galactic Star Cruiser, which is part of that hotel cruise line division, and this whole just variant situation with the cruises, I echo your sentiment. This is going to be a sector of Disney that's going to, I think, have some problems in 2022.
Now, if I may, I'm going to actually go off of what Dre said. A little bit of that prediction, as far as what the cruise line goes. My prediction of that would be, I feel that the cruise line industry would be hurting, depending on what the CDC and what they decide to do as far as pulling cruises off the itinerary, so to speak. I think as far as the cruise line goes itself, I think because of the reaction to what the CDC had said is somewhat abysmal, to the fact of like, okay, we're already hurting, we can't afford to do this now.
Yeah. And
I think what could possibly save, and I can't speak for the whole entire cruise industry, but just primarily the Disney Cruise Line, what can help them a little bit is the fact that so far the Disney Wish, the fifth new ship that's going to be premiering June 9th of 2022, so far there has not been no cancellations for the maiden voyage season of the Disney Wish. There is actually more cancellations for the Star Cruiser than there is the Disney Wish.
Wow.
So that can kind of save Disney in that matter. I guess it just depends on now, is that prediction going to come to fruition, depending how long this is going to stretch out with the Pandy.
Yeah, it's a tough call. That's interesting. I didn't know that, George, that there's been the cancellations have been very minimal for the Wish. That's good news for Disney. We'll see. Yeah, it all comes down to the CDC. If what they say. The Star Cruiser is a hot mess. It doesn't matter what's happening with the Pandy with that. It's not doing well. They got to reimagine that whole thing. It's
the Star Cruiser. That's what should be called the Decepticon. It's like,
right. Yeah, that one's not doing so hot.
And it's interesting to go back to a previous prediction that we made. OG and I made. Okay, maybe it was me on OG's channel. When I first came on Orange Go 55, which it's coming up on like what, the 2-year anniversary of that. That's pretty cool. It was right when the Pandy was kicking off and everything was shutting down, and we were seeing just tremendous changes and all of that. I had said before that out of all the projects I see, being maybe canceled or postponed, I put the Star Cruiser at the top.
You did.
Little did I know that would be prioritized over many other projects. And I thought the reason I said that was because the level of experience that you're looking for out of this, especially in an enclosed environment with many interactive features, that's going to be difficult to pull off in a kind of peak COVID era, so to speak, right? Right. And so now we're kind of coming up on, we've seen the kind of sentiment surrounding this whole thing. People are worried, people are frightened, people are, they're anxious, so to speak, and there will have to be experiential changes when it comes to this. When it debuts, can they afford that necessarily, especially at the price point that they have? I think it's going to be a very interesting conversation. Are they going to do what they promised they're going to do? I'm not sure, and that's why I'm a little bit apprehensive over it.
Well, yeah, and the whole concept is kind of hit and miss. Like, I like this idea of having like this galactic cruise line. I think that that general idea is actually pretty brilliant in a lot of ways. The issue, though, is that in my experience with going to Galaxy's Edge, this hyper immersiveness where the cast members won't even acknowledge earthly things. Like when you ask a cast member about annual pass discounts and they're playing this whole game. Oh, what's an annual pass? I don't know what that is. Bright Suns. It gets annoying. And look, I love immersion, but there comes a point though, where it gets in the way of like real life and logistics, and it gets just kind of annoying. Like, I just want to ask you directly, do I get an annual pass discount or not? I don't need the Star Wars like cosplay thing right now. I want to know the reality, what's going on, right?
Sure.
And they took that concept and they put it into a hotel or a cruise or whatever they want to call it. But I don't know. I think that would play a little on my nerves after a while. That's just me. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. We just did the Boba Fett thing. I love Star Wars. I just don't know if I'd want to deal with that for 3 days. I don't know.
Honestly, that was my biggest problem, where it didn't really appeal to me. The ship itself is cool. You know, the renderings, the concept art that they gave us, I thought was really cool, but it just did not appeal for me that if I'm going to put out money, any kind of money, to go on vacation, I want leisure. I want enjoyment. I want thrill. I'm not like going on vacation to cosplay. Like if I'm going to go do something with cosplay, I'd go to Comic-Con, or something like, not on vacation that I'm going to put out $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 for.
Well, I mean, here you're talking about the LARP, so it's not even just cosplay. It's now you're taking an active role, so to speak. And does that demographic appeal to that price base? I don't know. Go ahead, OG. Sorry, cut you off.
No, no, you're right. You guys are right. And like, for Comic-Con, at least it's like you dress up and you do it, like you said, Dre, like it's cosplay, but this is more LARPing where it's like you're part of the story.
Well, and the other thing I'm sorry, OG.
Well, no, I was going to say, it's just hard to maintain that and like keep that up. It gets annoying, I think, after a while,
Yeah, and as far as with Walt Disney World, I don't know if you two are familiar with, at Hollywood Studios, go figure, the restaurant 50s Primetime Cafe. Well, with 50s,
I've heard of it, but
okay. With 50s Primetime, there is actually role playing involved in that. To the degree where you go back into like the 1950s, like your grandma's kitchen, sitting at the dining table, watching black and white television, and the servers have different role plays. Now, this I will interact with because I thought this was really cool, where you have the annoying brother, the stubborn cousin, or the strict mother, and the robust father, no nonsense type of person, where you have your servers and it's like, you better finish your greens or you're not getting dessert, or get your elbows off the table, so to speak. But there was a lot of backlash with people, because there are people who go in there who don't even know what they're getting into, and they truly feel, there have been servers who lost tips because they really felt that these are people's attitudes towards them. So, mind you, that these people going now on the Star Cruiser, they have to have the mentality that these people are in the mindset that you are in the Star Wars universe. So it's like, if someone calls you a name, or they attack you aggressively, or it's like you can't take it serious. So it makes like a lot of, because you're going to get a lot of Star Wars fans. Right. You're not really going to get a lot of Disney fans in that persona. That Disney fans will understand it, but will Star Wars fans get it, that when they're going into a Disney Star Wars setting, you're getting the full immersive package.
Yeah, when some guy comes up to you and says "Ichuta," at you, it's like, what the, I mean, it is going to be interesting you're talking about, I mean, and this is where price really becomes an issue, right? Because you're going after this very upper echelon, upper middle class kind of segment here, and it's like, does that necessarily cascade with the consumer base that would be, that would want something like this? I'm not sure if those things are coagulate in the way that they kind of envision. I don't know. It was something that was like, I was like, it could work if it was executed at this level, and I'm not seeing that necessarily from the Star Cruiser as of right now. Yeah. Especially from some of the visual images that we're seeing from some of the promotional material that has now lost, right? That they've now taken down. It's like, I'm not sure.
Well, and Dre, you brought up a great point. It's a niche. It's a niche within a niche, and what I mean by that is, it's like Star Wars. The Star Wars sweaties are a niche market. If you're like hardcore in Star Wars, it's a big brand, no doubt. But the Star Wars sweaties that would want to do something like this is a niche market. But you're taking that already niche market, and then you're adding a niche on top of it, because now the price point is like, you have to be an upper, like you said, middle class.
Yeah.
So it's a niche, and then they're adding another niche element on top of that. So how many Star Wars sweaties that want to do this now have the money to do it? So it's a very limited scope thing,
Yes. Yeah.
It's just hard.
And
they gotta lower the prices.
I mean, that could be a way of going through that, but is it now profitable to do that with the level of engagement that they want? I mean, apparently they want people in full costume walking around, interacting with you. Can they really do that at the price point if they lower it? I'm not sure. But I mean, honestly, you're talking about the Woodies, right? You're talking about the real hardcores into Star Wars. I mean, there are some guys that are part of the 501st who make their own costumes, okay? Details everything for them. And now when you get into this Galactic Star Cruiser, I mean, even the images that we're seeing, it's like, ooh, I don't think the detail is there. I don't think it's up to that standard, but yet you're charging for it.
Right.
I don't know, and then you add in COVID.
And then it'll go nicely with your Savi handmade lightsaber that it gets put into a plastic bag.
Hey, you know what? It's a good thing that Disneyland's in Orange County, because they wouldn't give you a plastic bag here in LA County. I'll tell you that.
That's true. That is true. That's funny. I have a theory on that. I got a theory on that. I think they're having supply issues when it comes to those.
Ooh.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
That's why they can't do it, and that's why, they're not offering those. That what they should have done was they should have lowered the price right off the bat, just to kind of save face. You obviously, if you have reservations lined up, you know how many you're going to go through. This was coming down the line. The fact that they didn't have a plan at the outset, it was a bad look. That was a bad look.
It is. Supply issues happen. Like I go to Target all the time, shopping, whatever, and the shelves are bare right now. Yeah. Supply issues are a huge problem. But Disney should have at least said, hey, look, they should acknowledge that, like you said, Ray, like say, hey, look, we're having supply issues. The normal packaging for the lightsaber is not available. We're giving you a plastic bag, so we're going to cut it down like $50 or something. Give us some kind of deal on it. But they don't even acknowledge that. It's not cool. Yeah, like you said, bad.
And they
luck.
have the deluxe bags that they sell on the side there, especially if you get like a legacy lightsaber or something like that. You can have this kind of deluxe sheath, so to speak. They could have offered a discount on that. There were ways to go about this while dealing with the realities of supply issues that they might be having to incur right now. It's just unfortunate. I wanted to bring something up though, as far as the cruise line though.
Sure.
OG, do you mind sharing my screen just real fast?
Not at all.
This is the CDC's color coding, and when it comes to cruise lines, and I guess they have a yellow-red system, whatever. But you can see all of Walt Disney, the company's cruise liners, the Dream, Fantasy, Magic, and Wonder that are sailing right now are all yellow. This is why I think the Disney company is going to have maybe some problems, because even in this environment where they have full control over all the tangibles, they fully control who goes on board, who comes off. vaccination status, masks, everything, they still can't keep cases down not to show up on this list right here. Wow. And I think that's going to give them some problems. We saw Royal Caribbean just recently actually say that they were going to permanently dock for their ships, and not sail off of them, which is a significant part of their fleet. We know that the Disney company is making 2 new ships right now. This might be an issue for them. This is something to watch.
Yes. I think we had a conversation after we were done recording the other day. Are they still in progress? We're making the other 2 new ships after the Wish?
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, because those contracts, you still have to facilitate those to some extent, unless there's some kind of out clause, which I don't think they had. And I
still want them to make them. I can't wait to see them. I can't wait to see the Wish, but it's just a shame that all this money is being put into these ships and they can't utilize them the way that they're meant to be, and it's unfortunate.
These ships are a long-term thing, but it's definitely an investment for the future. But there's no doubt, like Dre was talking about here with all this, like they're going to take a hit. They're going to take a big hit short term. This is going to be the cruise lines. 2022 is going to be a real hard year for the cruise lines, and CDC is going to come in here, I think, and they're going to buckle down. This Decepticon variant is moving through pretty fast, and I would be very surprised if the cruise lines can just kind of operate just as normal. I really honestly don't think cruise lines will ever go back to being normal until they officially decide this is all done and over with. You can kind of go on the cruise, right?
At least until some of the sentiment calms down a little bit, some of the fervor, some of the I don't know, hysteria might not be the right word.
What they are predicting, their predictions, that it's going to peak mid-January and completely flatten by March. Now that's their prediction, so the first 3 months possibly, could be a hit to the cruise line, but who's really to say? They say that one, and then here comes another one.
Right.
Well, when you have a company like Royal docking some of their fleet, when you have Norwegian canceling, itineraries, I mean, it's a significant thing. Maybe they think something different than some of the predictions. I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll see. It's definitely a sector of Disney that's worthy of keeping an eye on, because I think the cruise lines married with the Star Cruiser, there's going to be issues. And
then to your last point, Dre, when you said that you believe that the Tron will be possibly open by the end of 2022, still make it.
There's a chance.
Yeah. Based off of what I've been seeing with the progress and how quickly it's moving compared to what it was last year, I'm kind of on board there with you. I think that there is still potential there for Tron to open sometime before the end of 2022.
Hope so.
Good. I'm not on an island on that. OG, what is your prediction?
I think, for Tron, I think that end of 2022, I think is a definite possibility for Tron. I take George's word on that. I'm not as familiar as savvy on the whole Walt Disney World thing, but from what we're hearing, they have ramped it up. So I think that it probably will open by the end of 2022. They definitely do want to get this in before the end of the 50th if they can. So definite possibility. Now, in terms of my prediction, it's kind of tied to George's in a way, the Disneyland Forward approval, because I do think these two things are kind of connected. Now, I also agree with you guys that Disneyland Forward will get approved, right? The summertime is probably when we're going to hear something. Upon that approval, though, I don't think it'll be too much longer after that. Maybe even at the same D23 Expo. I don't know. I think we're going to hear some kind of word, some sort of green light, some sort of confirmation of that Avengers E Ticket. I think that Avengers Campus, when we went in September, it was packed. It's a very popular land. It's a very enormously popular, one of the most, probably if not the most popular franchises right now in movies. Marvel. Chapek being a data guy and all that, the money guy, they're not going to sleep on that. They're gonna do this e-ticket, and I think we might hear something in regards to that in 2022. And again, D23 Expo might be that place. I don't know, but I do think that they're gonna move on that for sure, because they want to get you that kind of thing moves a lot of merch. It moves a lot of merch. It's a lot of money for Disney. There's no other IP that they can really add to Disneyland Resort that's going to be as powerful as Marvel right now.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. I think it's going to happen. And I think it will come around the time of the Disneyland Forward news, because that is tied to it, because of the way that project kind of opens land up for possible theme park expansion. It kind of will decipher whether or not they want to, like, look, if you know, as Disney, if you know Disneyland Forward is approved and you have all this land now that you can use for various expansions, that alters your plans for things like the Avengers E Ticket on where you put it and things like that. It's a chess game. It's a chessboard. Yes. So I do think it's going to affect it. And I think once it gets approved, I do think that Avengers E Ticket will get approved. What do you guys think on that?
And it's also a front runner, because this is an attraction that was already promised to us, that we even got little pieces of concept art already for it. We already know the space where it's supposed to go. I mean, we got a teaser with the I'm drawing a blank here, fellas. The where it's supposed to go.
The kind of facade that you see right in front.
Yeah.
With the what is it, the Quinjet on top?
Yeah, that's it, the Quinjet. Yeah, I drew a blank there. So
no, you're fine.
We already kind of know, where it's going to go. So because that we're kind of holding Disney on those terms of saying, okay, you promised us this e-ticket. You gave us Spider-Man. You gave us the audio animatronic stunt Spider-Man. You gave us everything. We want this e-ticket, So it's like, I agree with you, OG. I think, like, if there's anything to kind of give like a starter to Disneyland Forward, that's the best thing to start with.
It's the biggest franchise. Like, and look, Disney's obsessed with franchises, and
yes, they are.
There's nothing bigger right now. That what else could Disney put into the resort that's gonna be bigger than Marvel? There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So it's a no-brainer. I think once they get that approval and they know what land they have to work with, it's going in, and they're probably going to make an announcement. What do you think, Ray?
We already have significant development dollars invested into that project. So, that's something that's, a little bit more turnkey than a lot of the other, ruminations of projects that we've heard out there. It's an interesting thing, because the last time I checked in on the Avengers E-Ticket concept, it was predicated on Black Panther 2's release, because obviously the Chadwick Boseman thing that went down there, and how do you continue that storyline without him? Doing research for our studio segment that's coming up, I saw that Black Panther 2 was slated for November of 2022. Is that correct?
I believe so far, yeah, that's what it's supposed to be.
I mean, it is interesting. You could measure fervor for that. You could, or enthusiasm for that, and kind of make your decision, at least before D23 Expo, where we're going with that. Are we going forward, and we're not?
I'm glad you brought that up, Dre, because I actually have a prediction, a question as a prediction within a prediction from OG's point. So do you guys feel, because of the length of time that the e-ticket has been put on hold, could the storyline of the attraction itself change, as far as like the setting, the battle between like which villain or what have you?
Yeah, it's possible.
What would you suggest, that if it would be like so far beyond Thanos, what would you suggest that the e-ticket would then cover?
Well, they're gonna alter it. I think, that storyline, because I think, like what Ray touched upon, the Chadwick Boseman thing really changed everything. They're gonna alter it. Whether that means like maybe more Siri, I think that's her name. His sister.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Siri, right?
I believe, she's going to be taking a more prominent role in the series. I know that for a fact.
Now, I do know that the production has been put on hold because she got severely injured.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the delay. Yeah, she got hurt pretty bad.
I think I remember reading something about that. Ooh, that's tough.
But they might add more of her in the attraction, things like that. Like if they do wait to see what Wakanda Forever does in the box office, they're going to alter the storyline. I definitely think. And you got to understand too that Marvel's constantly releasing content. There might be something that really catches fire and they want to add that into the attraction, you know? So there's a lot of variables.
I mean, look, we saw that amazing finale segment of Endgame that involved even more characters than what we saw with Infinity War, right? And, you know, Doctor Strange definitely has his powers to get you there. I mean, you could see some things change to involve future content as released by Marvel.
I personally would love to see where it's not just set on one base story, because with the multiverse, you know, you got how many different variables, as you said, OG, that you can take. So I honestly, if they could actually do it, make it a way where the same ride experience won't be if you go on it a second time.
Right. That would be really, really good to integrate that kind of functionality within this attraction. I mean, we saw them going in that direction with a couple of their attractions, but to really expand that and to do it with this e-ticket, I think would be phenomenal and would be fit and would fit in this context.
It's endless. And with the success of Spider-Man No Way Home, like you said, like with the multiverse and all that, it's endless. It's absolutely endless what they can do with this attraction. I think it's on the horizon. I think it's a priority for Disney. I think that they definitely want to get that thing going. It's money for them. It's a mint. There's no way they're not going to do that thing.
Yes, absolutely. And it appeals to Kevin Feige. Feige said that, you know, Avengers Campus would be an ever-evolving thing. I think a lot of people were a little bit disappointed with the initial opening of it, not having a big, grand attraction like we had just seen with Rise earlier.
Yeah.
I think that's an astute observation and a pretty good prediction there, OG. I think that's pretty good. I think I can see that.
Yeah, and you know, when I had Rona recently, I lost my sense of taste. I kind of regret not trying the beer cheese when that was still in effect, because I think that I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more with no taste.
It's that Decepticon. It's too much metal.
Oh man, yeah, you know, and it's interesting too because it's not consistent. I've noticed some people like it, some people hate it. Maybe you just got a bad batch, and that's why you might not like it. Unfortunately,
I still haven't tried it, but I take your guys' word on it. I haven't heard anything good about it. So.
Well, Dre, I mean, they can't live up to the standards of that PB&J.
Oh man, that PB&J,
whatever that.
Let's not even go there. Jesus, that is terrible. For all that DCA does really well when it comes to food, man, that is definitely got to be the lowest I've ever seen at Disneyland Resort. Ugh, terrible.
Well, let's switch gears a little bit here now, cool. And let's do our 2022 prediction on the corporate side of the Walt Disney Company. Okay, so when I say corporate side, I'm talking like, you know, like this whole Susan Arnold, you know, chairman of the board thing, Bob Chapek, you know, CEO, things like that. That's kind of like the corporate side of the Walt Disney Company. Dre, I'm going to start with you this time. What is your prediction for the corporate side of Disney in 2022?
Well, you know, it's fascinating. I think, honestly, I think Bob Chapek makes it, right? And I think the stock does steadily improve as some of these hits come out. You know, that goes into our theater segment, or our studio segment, I should say. But as some of the hits come out, as Disney Plus does grow in subscriber count, I do think the stock does increase. How much? You know, I don't think it falls. I'll say that. I don't think it falls. Okay. How much it goes up, I don't know. We'll see. But I you know, the Susan Arnold thing was a really interesting thing. We didn't really get a chance to talk about it when it actually happened, but you know, as far as what I'm hearing, the company feels, the board feels that the CEO role, because of how expansive this company is right now, they feel it's a really kind of a two-person job now. Yeah. That it's gotten that big. And you know, it's interesting, OG, you brought up the fact that because we had, there were some Chapek detractors who were saying, "Wow, they didn't choose him to be chairman of the board. That's pretty interesting." But I think it was you who brought up the fact that Bob Iger didn't initially get that role either.
Right.
And when it comes to Susan Arnold, it's a very interesting thing because Susan Arnold hasn't always been the pro Iger person that, or somebody that hasn't been enamored with Iger in the same way that other board members have, or this kind of belief that we have of the board when it comes to its relationship with Iger. So it's a really fascinating thing. I don't know how much corporate development we'll have, but as far as the corporate side goes, I think Chapek will be somewhat successful throughout 2022 in at least getting the stock price up and getting things kind of settled down here as we get out of the Bob Iger era officially.
Yeah, and actually, great minds think alike, Dre, because that was actually my same prediction.
Okay.
That 2022 Bob Chapek stays. Here's the thing with Bob Chapek, and I think even Bob Iger kind of mentioned this. Bob Chapek is a highly adaptable executive.
Yes.
And I think even Chapek himself says he focuses a lot. We always joke about it, but like he focuses a lot on like data, consumer data. So what he'll do is he'll take data, the numbers, and then he'll adapt his approach based on that. He'll meet consumers where they are, I think is what he said.
Yes.
And because of that, I think he'll survive, because what he'll do is he'll take a situation like the ScarJo situation, right? The lawsuit. And he'll adjust his approach based on what happened there. So It's very unlikely now, in my opinion, that you're going to see a repeat of something like that. I think that he looked at the data, so to speak, and he'll adjust appropriately to make sure that doesn't happen again. And I think that because of this approach, this adaptability that Chapek has, that's why he's been so successful at Disney the last 30 years and rising, climbing his way to the top, because he'll fall, he'll fail, but he learns from it. And he takes the data and he adjusts the approach. And because of that, I think he will stay. I don't think he's going to get fired in 2022. And like you said, a lot of the stuff coming out this year is going to benefit him. Like, I know there was kind of like a stalling out in regards to the Disney Plus subscriber numbers, but like, we got the Book of Boba Fett, which we just did our review on the first 2 episodes. A great show. I'm sure they're getting a boost from that. Kenobi, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
They're going to get a fucking shit ton of subscribers on that, because that's what everyone's waiting for.
Yes.
There's a lot of great content coming on D Plus that's really going to bolster those numbers. That's going to help Chapek. It's the Disney Plus show, at least for Wall Street. It's the Disney Plus show. So
Absolutely.
yeah, he stays. I don't think they're gonna fire him. But like you mentioned, Dre, too, it's a good thing that Susan Arnold is there to sort of check his power.
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing. I think Disney operates best when it has that kind of push and pull where they have somebody to answer to. It's not, look, as much as I like Bob Iger and he's made mistakes, but I do like him, I respect him. He had too much power when he was a CEO and chairman of the board. That he should have never have gotten those roles.
Yeah.
Together. Yeah. It was too much, and it's good that Chapek doesn't have that kind of power. He has to watch his back because Susan Arnold's right there. She can call a board meeting and it can be bad news bears from Mr. Chapek. But,
That's true. That's a nice counterbalance.
It's a good counter. It's a good checks and balances. It is, it's like politics, you don't want one party rule, you don't want one party with the presidency and then, the House and Senate. You want to have a little bit of checks and balances. And I think it's good for Walt Disney Company to have that. What do you think, George, in regards to Chapek staying or going, if you think he's going to go?
Well, here's the thing. In the very beginning, and even before we discussed having like the 2022, predictions, I literally thought that he was going to be on his way out in 2022, to be honest with you. And I had talked about it a little bit, that I felt that, once the Star Cruiser comes into fruition and it opens to the big disaster that it's going to be, there's no prediction about that. I just know it for a fact that I felt that was going to be a nail in the coffin for him, because that was his baby. That was his head of. Now, as far as, because it shouldn't just rely on one person, but I think as far as with the executive board goes, they will look at it as, okay, here's our opportunity to get him out. However, of what we were just discussing, on top of with the Star Cruiser and with the cruise line industry, they're still going to need someone to kind of ride those waves a little bit, no pun intended, to get us out of that situation. Because, I really do feel like at some point the cruise line industry is going to take a hit before it gets back up on its feet, especially with the, as what OG puts it, the Decepticon variant, so it's, so we need a numbers guy, we need someone to still kind of, and I hate to put it in this way, but it's almost like the board is kind of using Chapek just to kind of, again, flow through through the motions, just to get us through it. And I think once we get out of it, one little false move, again, as you said, with Arnold being part of the board, kind of like check him in. And it's like, hey, you messed this up. You do this, you do that, your neck is on the line here. So I think it's a good balance.
They are using his talents where, he's most effective, right? I mean, he is very adaptable, as OG said. And he's very consumer driven. I mean, he had to be when he was part of consumer products. I mean, if he puts something out, it doesn't sell. You're looking at tangible product that you don't even know what to do with at this point. So you kind of have to be in line with the customer sentiment mentality.
And he actually had a very genius way when he was running consumer products, where he did with the vault, with the sort of like put the DVDs back in the vault. You bring it out for so long. I mean, every time that it said, okay, this is the date it's going to come out, and then this is the date it's going back in, people would flood the stores. Even before social media, but people went into those stores and hurry up. We got to grab the Little Mermaid special edition. We got to grab Beauty and the Beast special edition before it gets put in the vault. It boosted those numbers up, because if you were to just say, okay, Beauty and the Beast is being released on DVD. Okay, well, this is a special platinum edition 2-disc DVD with tons of bonus features, and it's going to go in the vault on October 18th. Get it before it goes, And it's just the DVD getting put in the vault, and the vault shutting and it closing, and it's like, that was great publicity for that, because it got the DVD numbers up, and that was his idea.
Well, and it actually plays to what Dre calls the indie effect.
Mm-hmm.
The indie effect, which is that false sense of scarcity to ramp up the demand. Mm-hmm. And he, like you said, George, Chapek like spearheaded that with the video sales, with the vault.
Yeah.
But you're seeing it now in the parks.
We are.
For better or worse, you're seeing that sense of like, get it now, you might miss out kind of thing. So it's definitely bleeding into other areas of the company now that he's a CEO. So it's very, very interesting.
I want to bring up this tweet here. Maybe I can do it really fast.
Sure.
It's interesting you say this. Let's see. Here we go. You want to talk about false scarcity? Let me share my screen here.
Sure.
And right there. Sorry. Okay. And Racer's only running 3 of 4 stations on a Saturday. But hey, pay $15 and you can ride right now. We're seeing this kind of artificial scarcity take place at some of the theme park operations, where you're now in this mentality where the kind of paradigm has changed. No longer is efficiency, king, so to speak. Now there's incentivization for Disney to be maybe inefficient and maybe drive those Genie Plus sales. So we're starting to see it, and it's what I predicted. It's, I was like, this is, now that you have this kind of reversal of this incentivization structure when it comes to efficiency, we might start seeing that. What did we see? We saw them getting rid of the standby options. Even though those were practices that allowed for efficiency to be at its peak, right? Well, now with not standby, but single rider options, I should say, we saw single rider options get pulled, and that also plays into the Genie Plus sales and stuff like that. So it's discouraging. It is, but we are seeing these changes, and that's why I think Chapek is constructing a better mousetrap here, and I think that's why the parks will continue to grow, at least profit wise, for 2022, and increase that stock price.
And even with Epcot right now, they had just placed Remy's Ratatouille Adventure out of the the virtual queue, and put it as a standby line. Why? Because now with the standby line, you now have the option to say, well, you could wait in a 5-hour standby line, or you could pay, that lightning lane, of like $25, and you can get right on the ride.
Yeah, it's wild. It's definitely wild. Now, George, I believe. Okay, so me and Dre basically have the same prediction for corporate. Chapek stays. He's not going anywhere. What is your prediction for corporate end of it?
Actually, mine was mentioned in our previous recording for Orange Nerd when we were doing the review of the Book of Boba Fett. Okay. I feel from the release of the Book of Boba Fett, coming off of the high of The Mandalorian, I feel that Filoni and Favreau are going to take as a dual partnership to take over Kennedy's place. And on top of that, kind of go in cahoots with WDI, sort of like how John Lasseter did as creative chief executive with Walt Disney Imagineering, to kind of flush out the issues that are going on within the parks with utilizing the Star Wars franchise.
Interesting.
That's quite a prediction right there.
So that's interesting. Okay, now first of all, yeah, if Filoni and Favreau took over Star Wars, Lucasfilm, that would be phenomenal. I have not hidden that fact that I support that 100%. But this whole notion that you were bringing up about how kind of having a Lasseter type role of like even being in like kind of like affecting the parks, very interesting. What do you think, Dre, about that? That
is a pretty interesting thing. But hey, you know what? If I guess we're calling this F and F, right? Filoni and Favreau. If they're placed into this role, so to speak, I could definitely see that happening in a way that should have probably happened to a larger extent with Kennedy and the parks themselves. I mean, what was unfortunate was, we saw Kevin Feige there at the opening of Avengers Campus, right? But we didn't really see Kathleen Kennedy at either of the openings of Galaxy's Edge at Walt Disney World or Disneyland. If that relationship could get maybe a little bit closer, where they could kind of provide some maybe ways to move forward when it comes to Galaxy's Edge, that'd be phenomenal. That'd be really, really good.
And I really, honestly, I really should kind of like change up my words. I think it won't like take into full effect where it's like, okay, Kennedy is completely out and FNF is in like right at the moment. But I feel that in 2022, that's going to be the starting process.
Yeah. Okay. I think her power is already being pulled back a little bit. I can already see her influence kind of
waning,
losing its effect, so to speak. Yeah. Honestly, I think for her, it's gonna be how well Indy 5 does, and we already know that's got some issues attached to it, and it got postponed again. So, that's her realm of influence right now, and it's really going to be predicated on that. Honestly, there is some rumors out there that maybe she is just a figurehead right now. F and F is in the driver's seat, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, and you got to think of it this way too, like we've mentioned many times here in this video and many times in videos in the past, Chapek is a data-driven guy, and when you have someone who's like that, data-driven doesn't always mean numbers necessarily. It sometimes means public perception, what the majority of people are feeling and what have you. And I'm sure he looks at Star Wars and says, Kennedy's a problem. And the numbers show that, or public perception shows that Favreau and Filoni are the more popular choice. They make product that is more well received,
Yes.
And someone like Chapek's going to take notice of that. So, now, hey, Daddy Iger's gone. He's gone now. He's no longer with Disney. So, if he was the one kind of keeping Kennedy there, well, he's out now. So it's up to Chapek. And Chapes might say, hey, look, she's out. These two guys provide stuff that the general public wants, and they welcome it, and they like it more than what she did. And, so we'll see.
Well, think of it in your context, OG, from your perspective. In your background right now, I don't see much sequel trilogy back there.
Right.
But I see little Grogu right there, right? Do we not think? I mean, even Bob Chapek himself brought up the fact that Mandalorian merch did move.
Oh, yeah.
I think he has a very keen insight and knows exactly what Favreau and Filoni bring to the table when it comes to all of this going forward. So I think you're right.
I mean, even like with certain and again, social media, is Big Brother. We were talking about this the other day when people are going to the parks for that Instagram photo, for that, that background, and could you imagine the line waiting to get a selfie with Grogu, with Baby Yoda?
I'm surprised they haven't done it yet because it's just a natural fit.
Oh my God, the photo pass money on that would be. Oh, they could fund a third park based on that photo pass. I mean,
you're probably right about that. Yeah, they would have to take it off as an included feature when it comes to the Disneyland Resort version of Genie Plus. I mean, it's like no, you gotta pay extra for it because it would be in such high demand.
But it's like there's a lightning lane for that. But of course, if you want to bypass that line, you pay like $250. We'll get you right into the front of the line.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, no, it would be massive, and I'm surprised. Like you said, Dre, I'm very surprised they haven't capitalized on that. But hey, Iger's gone, and there's a new sheriff in town. You might start seeing some of that. So we'll see.
I think so, and I think Lucasfilm and everybody else will be better off for it.
Yep. 100%. So now we're going to pivot to the last and final segment, which is the studio side of the company. And we're going to talk about some predictions in regards to the studio. So George, on this one, I'll start with you. What are your predictions for the studio side of the Walt Disney Company?
Well, it was kind of funny that I was actually going to put out a tweet on this notion after the news broke out. And I saw your recent video, OG, on your channel about with Turning Red, going directly to Disney Plus, and everyone is having this conniption of saying, "Oh my gosh, how could they? This is the pattern for Pixar." Right. Let's be real, folks. Honestly, you have the option of going to see Spider-Man: No Way Home in theaters, or you can go see a animated feature of a young girl that every time that she has an emotion, she turns into this giant, oversized red panda.
Yeah.
For the marketplace goes, which way you going to go? I'm sorry, I'm going to Spider-Man No Way Home. And honestly, this is where the company is looking at it. That it's to the fact of how much money can these animated feature films boast in a theater right now of this is actually the new norm, is because a lot of people really aren't going to theaters, but they will go to a theater for a kick-ass movie like No Way Home. I was one of them. I didn't go to the movie theater up to the point of that I really wanted to see Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah.
And so for my prediction moving forward, and even as you had mentioned, OG, in your video, that Encanto only gained 40 million,
opening weekend
out of the gate, and that's kind of on the low end. So for me, I feel like moving forward, that as far as with animation goes, not even just with Pixar, I think it's going to slowly but surely even integrate with Walt Disney Animation, that it's going to be where they could have it in select theaters or select screenings, what have you. But I feel that it's going to be majority on Disney Plus streaming. That's the way everyone's going to go. And then when you have like these big blockbuster films with Lucasfilm and Marvel, those are the ones that are going to hit theaters because they know that people can still utilize the theater on top of the streaming service.
Remember what Bob Chapek said about Shang-Chi, and he got a lot of shit for it, but basically what he said was that Shang-Chi was an experiment. And he meant it in a way where it was like he kind of wants to see how it does with that theatrical window. And I think it did very well. Shang-Chi did very well. And I think they're probably happy to some degree with the Eternals. But Encanto did not perform very well in the box office. So I think what you're seeing here with Turning Red is a reaction to how Encanto did. And kind of mixed in with how successful Luca and Soul were on Disney Plus, because they performed very well on Disney Plus. Encanto did not do very well in theater, so I think that Kareem Daniel, right, is just looking at this and going, well, animation sort of struggling in theaters. We're gonna go to what worked with Luca and Soul going forward. And I think that's pretty much what it is here. I think, like we said many times, Chapek follows the data. Obviously, the data probably wasn't that great for Encanto, so they switched gears and they decided to go straight to Disney Plus for this next animated film. But Dre, what are your feelings on George's prediction?
It's a very interesting conversation, right? I mean, I know the Pixar guys are upset. I know the fans are. They're kind of upset, right?
They're upset.
They kind of understand the animator's plight there. And I think we got a quote somewhere from some guy, I don't know if it's true or not, where this Pixar animator who's distraught saying, wow, I mean, it's like, damn. I mean, damn the theaters. We're not even good for premium access. It's like, oh, boy. Look, I think you're right. I think they are looking at the situation when it comes to, look, the big thing is family entertainment, right? We saw Trolls 3 or Trolls World Tour, whatever, as debuted in like April of 2020. We saw it do really well on streaming, right? Mm-hmm. We saw that really move the needle quite extensively. And I think studios have really been kind of chasing ever since. When it comes to Pixar, I think they understand that the Pixar brand is very strong. Yeah. And, honestly, I mean, it's like when I look at Walt Disney Studios Animation and Pixar, at this point right now, where we're looking at right now, I think there's no comparison. I think Pixar really knocks out of the park every single time, whereas Walt Disney Studios, they've been kind of struggling a little bit. And so when it came to Encanto, I was like, I just don't see this doing well. Sure enough, it didn't. And they're looking at the reality there. Also, too, the subscriber numbers were down, right, for the last quarter. Right. So it's like, okay, well, how do we boost subscriber numbers? How do we keep people coming back? How do we forward Disney Plus subscriptions? Well, one of the ways you do that is placing something like this kind of premium content on the streaming service included. And I think that's what we're seeing there. And it's kind of a tough situation. I'll say this. There are two ways of looking at this. You could look at it and go, wow, we're not in theaters anymore. It really sucks, right? And I think there's some Academy Award stuff going on there. I don't know if that's still true to this day or not, but I guess the Academy is like, you have to have a film actually be in theaters for a certain amount of time before it gets Academy consideration for awards and stuff like that. That could kind of play a role in that. But you could also look at it and go, hey, look, we are at the forefront of this new distribution platform for the entire Disney company. And we're on a platform that's really fueling the future at this point. And we're really at the cutting floor. So there's two ways to look at it from Pixar's point of view, and I hope they look at it the second way.
Well, and Dre, you bring up a great, fantastic point in that, Pixar being on the forefront. And see, and this is the thing too, and this is part of the growing pains that we're seeing right now with the change in the industry. I think is that it's really hard to change the mindset of people, because we're all kind of ingrained in this mindset of back in the 90s when Michael Eisner was doing the direct to video sequels, or cheap quels that they called them, right? Right. We kind of associate direct to home as sort of being the cheap or lesser than kind of thing. And that's going to be a mindset that's going to be really hard to undo right away. Because really, I don't really even think that's true anymore. I mean, you see a lot of series, TV, direct to streaming stuff that's phenomenal, whether it be Disney Plus, whether it be Hulu, Netflix. The game has changed. but people still have. I'm an old, I'm older, and I remember those 90s direct to sequel video things, and it was cheaper, right? But we do live in a different day. So I think a lot of these Pixar people, no fault to them, but they still have that same mentality of like, well, direct to video means Cinderella 4, right? And it's kind of like a cheaper kind of mindset where I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore. I mean, Disney Plus is the crown jewel right now of the Walt Disney Company. Yeah. It's not this like second tier thing. The quality stuff, we just did a review on the Boba Fett show. Quality stuff like Boba Fett, Mando, huge things are going on this platform directly. It's not an insult in my opinion, but I can understand the Pixar executives' position.
Yeah, you can understand
where they're coming from, because it really does. It's rooted in that old mentality of like the direct to video crap that we saw with Iron Man, with the Cinderella 4, Little Mermaid 3.5, all that garbage. But we live in a different time though, so it's really hard to kind of unbreak that mindset.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to George's earlier point about going to the theater versus not, and what's going to make it out in the theater, what isn't, I think family entertainment still has ways of getting back. Theater prices they're going up, a little bit. Concessions are going up a little bit. Obviously, they've taken a huge hit. They have to make that money back. So when it comes to a family of 4, bringing the whole family to something like Encanto doesn't make much sense. But when you talk about event pictures, especially when you have like a 4-quadrant film like Spider-Man, I mean, people are going to go. And so that rolls into my prediction, just based off of what we saw with Spider-Man, what we saw with the enthusiasm for the Marvel brand, so to speak, and what event pictures could bring to the table. I think, looking at this film slate of 2022, I think we could see Disney breaking maybe $4 or $5 billion on some of their items there. I mean, if you were to get like 600 million, 700 million out of films like Thor: Love and Thunder, maybe Avatar 2, maybe Black Panther 2, Doctor Strange, all that, you could get to that. I think it is possible that you could get to that point. And that's a bold prediction, but we'll see.
Those are the films that I feel that will succeed in the theaters. Those are the ones that people will literally say, you know what, on the weekend, let's pack the kids up, let's go into the car, let's drive to the theater. That's worth sitting in front of a massive jumbo screen in that environment.
Correct.
No, well, yeah, and that's where the theater experience excels. Like, and you're seeing it, with Spider-Man No Way Home. These event films, these tent poles, Spider-Man No Way Home, like Dre mentioned, the Avatar, Star Wars, Marvel movies, all that stuff. Those are the films that really are truly made for that theatrical experience, And I think those movies were really never in jeopardy when it comes to this, because I think those are the kind of films that really have the most staying power when it comes to that model. The smaller films are going to be a lot tougher, like the Encantos, the Turning Red. Yes, those are going to be a little bit harder, but Dre, you're right. I mean, with the slate they have for 2022, it's possible they hit. What you say, 4 or 5 billion? You said for
4 or 5 billion. I think it's possible. Now look at that. That's going out there on quite a limb, especially from what we've seen.
I don't know, but just with No Way Home alone, they're already on a good projectile for that number.
Right.
Yeah.
Over $1 billion.
It's bringing in huge grosses, and I think if you can leverage the Marvel brand, especially these characters and stories, to the extent that they could be, I do see good things on the film side, at least when it comes to theatrical release. We're gonna have to see about Lightyear and a couple of other films, but I think it's very, very possible. I do predict theaters, or at least the theater side of the distribution business for Disney, being in pretty good shape.
And that's interesting. And in terms of Lightyear, I would be shocked. And I know the trend lately has been Pixar going, directly to Disney Plus. But Toy Story is such a monster franchise. I would be very, very surprised, regardless of what they see in the data with family movies and stuff, I can't see that going straight to D+. I just can't.
Oh, really?
I can't. I think that's going to be a theater one
because they already have the date kind of set forth for Lightyear, and how I know of this is because we'll actually be in Florida during the time when Lightyear premieres, and I even said to Jess and Josh, when we're at Disney Springs at the AMC Theater, why don't we go check it out? So if it stays that way, we'll be seeing Lightyear.
I'll say this: Turning Red was supposed to debut in theaters March 11th, and think about how much how many distribution dollars, or maybe even potential marketing dollars that were going into that film. How many agreements that you had to break for it to be pulled out of theaters and be put into Disney Plus.
Lightyear, do you see is there a comparison, or do you think there's a much more higher market for that, though?
I think I will agree with OG's sentiment on that. Look, it's supposed to come out June 17th, 2022, right?
Yeah.
If we're going to learn anything about that, we'll learn it probably in April. Is that right? 2 months out?
Yeah.
Okay. So whatever happens in April, we'll see. I think if it does stay in theaters, it would be for the exact reasons that OG mentions.
And Lightyear is a spectacle film. Lightyear is a tentpole film. It's Pixar's Spider-Man. It's a big event movie. It's a spectacle visually, even. It meets all the criteria for a theatrical release. Turning Red really doesn't. Turning Red, most of the film takes place in either like the classroom or the girl's home. It's a smaller movie. So is Luca, even Soul. Lightyear is a big spectacle tentpole thing. It's a Toy Story brand. It's a huge franchise. I would just be so surprised if that didn't go into theaters. I could be wrong though, but yeah.
No, I think you're right, because I think when I first saw the preview of Lightyear, kind of what it reminded me of, you took the concept of Toy Story and meshed The Incredibles mixed with WALL-E. That was like Toy Story, WALL-E, The Incredibles mixed it together, and that's kind of like the vibe that I got with the trailer for Lightyear.
Yeah.
Pixar I think Pixar is still very capable of bringing in anywhere from $500 million on up from the theater side, and if there's a movie on the slate that could do it, I think you're right, OG. I think it could be Lightyear.
And I honestly think Lightyear, in probably Chapek's mind, again, of how he said, he probably won't say it because he got the gripe when he said about Shang-Chi, but Lightyear may be Pixar's tester.
Yeah.
It's like, you want to release something in theaters, here you go. Maybe this will depict whether or not that, how the numbers go. And he's given them that chance to say, well, let's do it with Lightyear. Let's not let the tester be something like Turning Red. Let's try Lightyear.
I would also like to juxtapose that against maybe the consumer products division and how, well, now it's parks, experiences, and products, but that's another story. The consumer product side of things, right? We did see Soul come out direct to Disney Plus, and they had a lot of merch for that didn't necessarily move. Now, is that because of the distribution strategy? I'm not sure. And Chapek was asked about this, and he brought up the fact of Mandalorian, very successful on Disney Plus. Okay, good, we got it. But when it comes to Lightyear, I would also bring consumer products into the equation as to whether or not that gets a theatrical release or not.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting. Now, my prediction for the studio side of the Walt Disney Company is I think 2022 is going to be the year of Star Wars. Essentially, I think that Book of Boba, you're seeing, very high marks for Book of Boba. We all liked it. Fans in general are pretty much united in liking it. Now, not everyone loves it, granted, but I think for the most part, it's receiving high marks. And I think Kenobi coming out later this year is going to be a massive thing, a massive gargantuan hit that might even surpass Mandalorian. I think this is the year of Star Wars. I think Star Wars has kind of found its niche on Disney Plus. I think that Favreau and Filoni are kicking some butt, and they're really stepping into they're in their rhythm now. They have a couple shows under their belt. Once Kenobi hits with Deborah Chow, it's going to be a big year for Star Wars. I really do believe that. And no movies, but Star Wars is going to do it, I think, on the streaming platform.
And I'm okay with that, believe it or not. I'm actually okay. I have more confidence with Lucasfilm and Star Wars than on the streaming platform with Disney Plus than I am moving forward to having a movie in the theaters. And I think we kind of touched upon this a little bit when we were talking about Kathleen Kennedy, depending on how Indy 5 does. Well, with the production, hassle that's going on again, off again, green light, yellow light with Indy 5, it almost makes me wonder that if they could have got so much more out of it, turning it into like a series rather than just a one and deal movie film that's going to be released in theaters.
Interesting. What do you think, Dre, in terms of the year of Star Wars?
Yeah, it's a bold prediction. But I can see why you say that now looking at it. I mean, you're talking about 3 big series coming out here. Book of Boba Fett's already lighting fire here. I mean, it's really doing a phenomenal job. Then you have, like you said, Kenobi, and I think we're looking at season 3 of Mandalorian. Is that correct?
Oh, that's true. I didn't even consider that one, but you're right. Yeah. I think season 3 comes out. Yep.
So I think you're right about that. I think it might be, Star Wars is kind of momentum upward and kind of getting the ball rolling on future projects and development. Like you said, George, I do have pretty good confidence, at least when, Favreau and Filoni are even tangentially attached. Good things seem to happen. So yes, I do have confidence in them to pull this off. My only thing would be, hey, look, you could mix in films as more event pictures surrounding these stories on Disney Plus. Have your cake and kind of eat it too, so to speak. Lead up to a film and then break for more series. Lead up to a film, and you could play it like that. I think it would do well. Yeah. But yeah, it's a pretty bold prediction, but I like it.
Yeah. I think that it's going to be a big year for them. I'm really looking forward to Kenobi. I really enjoyed. I know a lot of fans weren't really too thrilled with the prequels, but I did enjoy a lot of those prequel films. I loved the Kenobi and Anakin dynamic. Yeah. I think they played well off each other. I love Ewan McGregor.
I was just going to say, Ewan McGregor portrayed the younger version of what Kenobi was in the original really well. Like, he brought his own personification of that character that I think could really stretch the Kenobi series out.
Fans accepted him in that role. Not so much with what was the guy? What was the guy's name who played Han Solo? Now I drew a blank.
Oh boy,
Alden
Ehrenreich.
Yes,
right. Alden Ehrenreich.
Not so much with him, and I feel nothing against him. I mean, but it's just fans didn't really. They didn't feel that with him. Yeah. He was never Han Solo to a lot of people. But Kenobi, Ewan McGregor's version of Kenobi, he instantly filled in that role, and people accepted him in that role. I think he did a phenomenal job, and their fans are thirsty for more Kenobi. We wanted a Kenobi. Remember back in like a few years ago, we were a Kenobi movie.
Yes. This is something that fans have wanted for a long, long time. They've wanted to integrate or reintegrate Ian McGregor into the role. Fill that gap of when he drops off Luke Skywalker to Uncle Owen, and what happens, between that time period, between that and New Hope. We've wanted to see this for a long time. I think they'll do really, really well. It's interesting you bring up Han Solo, because I think I can confidently say, when I'm hearing the rumors and everything like that, I think we might have an appearance from a famous smuggler when it comes to Book of Boba Fett. I think it is possible. That's the big rumor that's out there.
I heard that rumor too. I'm kind of crossing my fingers with that as well.
Yeah, I've heard that on actually I was watching Den of Nerds. I don't know if you guys watch Den of Nerds, but he was talking about that. It wouldn't shock me at all. Look, they did a good job with the Luke Skywalker, the de-aging. I know it wasn't perfect, but it was I think like 90% there.
It was there.
It was there. Yeah. It was good. It was very good. And I think they can do the same thing with Harrison. And I think they're going to want to do that. Look, reality is, and I know this is kind of a downer, but it's just the reality of life. Harrison's not getting any younger. So I really want Lucasfilm to utilize him in as much as they can while we still can, Yeah. So if you can get him into Book of Boba and de-age him, do it, man. You right now is when,
And that sets the stage for what you were saying, OG, previous when we were talking about intertwining mini stories in between the sequels.
Right.
So that's a good way of placing Han Solo after the fact of the Return of the Jedi, but yet before Force Awakens. So it's like, where is that timeline go between that? And that could set the stage for, as you had mentioned, with the sequels.
I could see him making an appearance in Jabba's palace as a representative of the New Republic. That would be freaking dope, dude.
It would be dope. And that would be something that they would drop. It's not going to be episode 3 or anything. No. It'll be like the finale for sure.
It's going to be finale. They're going to do it just like they did Luke Skywalker.
Yep.
You're gonna have Boba Fett finally take the reins as daimyo, and he's gonna be respected, and he's gonna achieve all of his goals. And now he's being brought into the Forward, into the New Republic space, helping them out, defeat the remnant of the Empire. And who's the representative? I think we all know who it is. That'd be my prediction.
Yes, that's a good one. I think you might not be too far off on that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, I've heard this rumor too, with the Han Solo thing. And I just think that they've received so much fan praise with the Luke Skywalker. And I think that Favreau and Filoni, they know how to handle these characters. They're going to do Han justice, and it's going to be glorious.
A lot of positive goodwill directed towards Star Wars, which they need.
Yes.
A lot of positive goodwill. So I think they want to duplicate that.
Let me ask you guys this real quick before we go. I want to ask you guys something real quick.
Yeah.
A lot of Star Wars fans were complaining, and it really amplified a lot after the unfortunate passing of Carrie Fisher, that we never got like the trio again in the sequel trilogy. I know, Dre, you touched upon that. You were disappointed in that, seeing them all together in one scene, right?
Yeah.
Do you think, because, Favreau and Filoni, they're tuned in, tapped into the fan base. Is it possible we see now, obviously Carrie is no longer with us, but through technology, is it possible we see, maybe not, I don't even know, maybe in Book of Boba Fett or maybe in some future project that we see through technology, the trio, Luke, Han, and Leia back together again? You think
I think it's absolutely possible. I think it's absolutely possible. And I would go one step further. I think it's actually possible for, there's some great, what they're doing right now is what should have been doing. They did to a little bit, to a certain extent, but really, like, when you got rid of the EU, I know this is a very controversial thing in Star Wars circles and stuff. And my feeling was always, look, some stuff didn't work in the EU, right? Some stuff didn't coalesce as well as it could have, wasn't as received well as some other stuff, right? Getting rid of the EU presented an opportunity where you could take the best of the EU and expand those stories out and really do justice to not only what was before, but what is now and what is to happen further, right? Build some stories around maybe some stories that really did work in the EU, but present them in a new way, so to speak, right? You kind of had a blueprint. You kind of had a place to go. They're doing that now. They're taking some of the best stories of the EU and kind of reinterpreting them, kind of doing some new stuff with them. And there's some great stories of Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Leia's adventures in the EU that they could really bring to the forefront. And I would honestly, it'd be cool to get like a show.
Yes.
Or that kind of thing, showing like what happened to these characters between here and here. And doing it right and doing it proper. I think that's possible. And honestly, like, maybe a recasting, maybe a face swap. I'm not sure how you necessarily go forward with that, but man, if you could have some of the ideas brought out, like what we saw in the Tron trilogy in the EU, what we saw, with Luke's Academy and his issues that he had. I mean, could you imagine a kind of series based around his academy and him getting started up and his young group of students, and what they were going through? It could be like an X-Men kind of thing. It would be kind of really cool.
Oh man, that would be really cool.
You could do stuff, and I think it's possible.
Yeah. And it's cool too. It brings up the possibility because like Star Wars and George Lucas kind of started this with like the special editions and what have you. But like it's kind of like this thing where like I feel like with like, let's say for example, the Luke Skywalker, the young Luke Skywalker in Mandalorian. I think as technology improves and advances through the years, I can definitely see Lucasfilm or Light and Magic going in there in 20 years and applying new technology to what they already built there in Mandalorian and improving upon it as the years go on.
Right.
You know, Lucas did this a lot with his stuff. Now he was changing a lot of things though, you know, beyond just improving stuff. So it was a little more controversial. I don't think Disney will go that far into changing things, but I think that going in there after the fact, hey, you know, 20 years from now, when we have better technology and kind of touching things up a little bit, making it even look a little more real, I can see them doing that too. Or, you know, they can do that with Rise of Skywalker, with the I think what the young Luke and Leia in that movie. They can go in there after the fact, in decades from now, and kind of improve on that a little bit. And it's kind of ever changing. So possibilities are endless, but it's exciting.
Yeah, because they even got, I'm for sure, lots of footage that they didn't even get to use in the films, like during the final product. So they could always mix and intertwine maybe scenes that were initially cut from the films and maybe intertwine it with the storyline or the show.
We saw a little bit of that with Book of Boba Fett, right? With Tashi's Station.
Yeah, exactly.
There was a cut scene that kind of integrated those characters and everything like that.
And I know this isn't like on like the scale of what Star Wars is, but that's sort of like what they did with Toy Story 4 with Mr. Potato Head. You know, because the late, great Don Rickles had already passed before they even got the film, but they literally took all outtakes, all things when he was in front of the microphone, and they literally meshed it into the script, and they were still able to use the character of Mr. Potato Head in Toy Story 4. So there's, as you both said, there's endless possibilities that I think, honestly, with Filoni and Favreau at the helm, I can't say that nothing is impossible for them.
Right. No, they'll make it happen. They'll make it happen.
It would be very difficult to do an authentic recast in a theatrical sense, but I think you could do, like, even if there were technological limitations that you couldn't really get around, I think you could get the idea of a recast set up in the kind of the Disney Plus Star Wars, you know, with a series, right? And then like have people accept it through that, and then integrate those actors or stories or characters, whatever, into a larger setting. I think that is possible.
Yeah. Fascinating conversation today, guys. Fascinating conversation. Looking forward to 2022. There's a lot. You know, actually, it would be very interesting if we revisit this video and do like a reaction video, like next December or something, and see where we were at. You know, that might be kind of cool.
Might be kind of cool. Yeah.
I wouldn't mind doing that. But I want to thank you guys so much as always for coming on. I'm gonna start with Mr. D23, Mr. Disney Family Man. George, where can everybody at home find you on social media?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23, under the same banner, on my Instagram account, on Twitter at Disney George, and of course on Orange Grove 55's channel with Citrus Corner. Again, definitely check it out. A lot more content coming your way.
Perfect. You know, it's funny, Dre. Every time you do that, I look at my phone because I got that's my text ringtone when I get a text
tone. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. That's funny. I do apologize. It's coming one more time, so don't you have to look at your phone. Well, you know, look, you can find me at Vash Guy right here on Twitter. Love the conversation. Really in engaging parts. So thank you for reaching out there. But you can see me at Orange Grove 55's channel at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. So that's where you can find me.
There it is. Yes. Well, thank you both for coming on, and thank you all for watching this 2022 prediction video in regards to the parks, the cruises, the corporate end, and the studio. We got a lot of great discussion here. Comment down below with your 2022 predictions. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you all so much for watching. Like, subscribe, and as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.